Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Julian Hunt, and I'm one of 8 industry-nominated directors for the new UK Deposit Management Organisation Limited, which has been set up to organise DRS across the UK. I can't see the slides. Is the first slide up?
Yeah, we're on the first slide, Julian, which comes up with the reminder around the DRS scheme starting in October 27.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think everybody here will be aware that DRS is a regulatory requirement obligation on industry as part of extended producer responsibility. The regulations for England, Northern Ireland were passed in January and more recently for Scotland. At the moment, we're still waiting clarity on the approach that will be taken by the Welsh Government. They're in dialogue with many stakeholders about the best way forward for Wales. Certainly from the Deposit Management Organisation, our preference would clearly that there is a four-nation approach, there is a common approach to timelines and to materials in scope, which currently for the 3 nations are PET plastic bottles and steel and aluminium cans for beverage containers. But as I say, still a live dialogue. But for England, Northern Ireland and Scotland, the deposit return schemes will start in October 27. And if we can move to the next slide, please. Again, this is really more of a reminder for this audience. What is a DMO or Deposit Management Organisation? What does it do? In summary, it sits at the heart of a deposit return scheme and has a number of critical roles, which we've tried to capture here. Essentially, it organises the collection, sorting, processing of the returned beverage containers. It makes sure that those required to operate return points are compensated for that, and it ensures the management of the deposit around the system, as well as invoicing producers on their per container producer fee. We'll also have a lot of requirements around monitoring and reporting, so data is going to be absolutely critical. And we have a very clear objective as an organisation. It is to ensure that the DRS delivers world-beating return rates for the containers in scope. And if we move to the next slide. For the industry, I mean, it really will touch and impact most beverage producers and retailers across the UK. There are some exemptions, but essentially most businesses will be in scope, producers having to register. There will be some requirements around labelling, and they'll have to pay producer fees. And then as a positive, also will be able to get access to some really high quality materials to recycle back into new containers. And for retailers, it is again about registering and then being obligated to operate the return points that are necessary within the DRS. So it will be very impactful, very disruptive, and it will change consumer behaviours. So none of us underestimate the scale of the change that is coming in 2027. And if we move on one, and again, not new news for this room, but this has been a policy arena that's been a long time coming. It started in 2018, and actually, to be fair, before that in Scotland. And really, it was in April last year when the Four Nations policy statement on DRS was laid out before the elections that really galvanised a number of leading producers and retailers to come together and form a group to really address one fundamental question, which was how would industry go around making an application to form the Deposit Management Organisation, an industry-led, not-for-profit deposit management organisation that would sit at the heart of the DRS. And that's really where the work began. And if we move on one more. And these are the companies that really stepped up to do that work. It was businesses across the value chain. So it was soft drinks, it was alcoholic beverages, principally beer and ciders, bottled waters, as well as leading retailers. And we were really very well supported by the 4 key trade bodies, the BSDA, the BRC, BBPA and the Natural Source Waters Association. So a number of leading companies, 4 key trade associations coming together to start to think through how best to make an application to form the deposit management organisation. If we go to the next slide, we organised ourselves in quite a structured way. So there was at the top a steerco that really had the overall accountability and decision making. We set up a number of working groups that were looking at some of the key elements of the DMO application. And then whilst there were a number of leading players and for the key trade bodies, we were conscious there are many others that are impacted by DRS. So we set up an advisory council that really was there to keep the whole industry updated on the work that was happening. We also involved officials from the various governments as well, so they could stay connected to the work that was underway. And then around that, we asked PwC to provide the secretariat for all of that work. So really acting as a project management office, putting in the disciplines that were needed to work in quite a complex arena at pace to deliver the deposit management organisation application. And if we move to the next slide, I won't labour this point. There was a lot of work that went in. So although we came together in April, May of last year, we really only had about 6 months to finalise the content for the application to the nation states. And it was in 4 kind of buckets, I guess. There was some essential basic information about the organisation that was being formed. There was a need to provide some thought and some high-level thinking around the operational plan that would be required to deliver the DRS, how that would be financed, and then also some thinking around some cross-cutting issues, which are very much in our minds around equality of access, making sure this scheme is accessible to all, and that's both from a consumer perspective, but also from an industry perspective. IT is at the heart of this. They have to be robust, strong systems, and we know this is always at risk of fraud. So what was the thinking there? So that was the structure of the plan that was put in. And if we go to the next slide, but just taking a quick step back, one thing that was really important, and it was agreed very early in the process to make the application, was the structure of the board and the core governance of this new organisation was absolutely going to be critical to its success, and particularly making sure the interests of producers and those that would be running return points were represented fairly. There was good balance on the board and very clear decision making that would make sure that the interests of everybody was heard as we go through the process, because there will be some very difficult conversations that lie ahead that will be at the heart of the operational plan. So making sure from day one that we had the right governance, the right board structure in place, and a strong level of support from across industry, we recognised was really crucial to our success. And if we move to the next slide. And one thing that we've done, it's not a new approach. This happens in many other schemes around Europe, and we've also seen it closer to home as a model that we could learn from with Return, which is the scheme now operating successfully for a year in the Republic of Ireland, was making sure that industry nominated board directors had links to the key trade bodies, and you can see the names of the various trade bodies that were involved. So I'm the director for the soft drinks sector, and I was nominated by the British Soft Drinks Association, and you can see on the slide the others were nominated by trade bodies covering all aspects of the industry here in the UK. And if we move to the next one, as I say, I'm one of 8 industry nominated directors. The others are on the screen there, and you'll see straight away that it's an incredible amount of experience, knowledge, and industry capability there represented on the board. But we are the industry nominated directors. We are in the process of recruiting an independent chair. We will then look for the 2 independent non-executive directors, and then a CEO and a chief exec, and then a chief financial officer as well will be sitting on the board, and will have a really good breadth then, I think, of knowledge, capability and experience to drive this business forwards. Go to the next slide. Very quick. After all that work, effort over many months, really pleased that in April, towards the end of April, the application for England and Northern Ireland was successful, and then more recently confirmed when the regulations were passed in Scotland as well. So we are formally appointed to be the DMO for the DRS in England, Northern Ireland and Scotland. If we move on. So once the board was the interim board with the industry nominated directors was in place, and as we started to prepare to be approved in our application, the board really focused on 5 key things to get ready. One is around recruiting those independent non-exec roles on the board. Some really basic stuff around how do you stand up a brand new organisation very, very quickly, getting the IT in place, for instance. Maintain really strong dialogue with the 4 governments of the UK, thinking through the marketing and comms, and that's not really a consumer-facing thing at all. This is very much around our industry and broader stakeholder engagement, and then, as I say, the engagement with those stakeholders, putting in place some good solid processes for doing that. If we move to the next slide. And just a bit more detail on those 5 key tasks I've mentioned on recruitment. We're already well advanced on actively recruiting for the chair and the other roles. We've incorporated the new entity. We're now looking at things like where would the head office be located, for instance. Ongoing dialogue with regulators, with officials in the 4 governments, and looking slightly further afield as well, making sure that we have good relationships with Return, who run the scheme in the Republic of Ireland, getting really good base foundational communications in place to engage industry, but beyond industry, and then putting in place, let's say, some processes for how we communicate with our industry stakeholders. If we move to the next slide. I think a key part of that is what we're calling the industry advisory group. We've tried to make sure this really is made up of representatives from as wide as possible group of organisations with an interest in deposit return schemes. Very specifically and deliberately, this will be producers and retailer organisations representing large and small businesses from across the four nations. It's not about individuals, it is about trade bodies who have the biggest reach collectively and combined to be able to connect with as many industry stakeholders as possible. And it's going to be a key place where we come to get input views on some of the key topics to do with the operational planning and development of this organisation. We move quickly. So as we kind of think through the next few weeks and months, we're putting in place some interim resource, some capability and expertise to really help to build some momentum around the work, which is really about starting to deliver the detail of the operational blueprint, the operational plan that's going to be required this year to help us start to think through 26 and 27 towards launch. Linked to that is also around the financing and funding requirements that are going to be needed to help stand up the organisation, and the ongoing communication with all of our stakeholders. At the moment, as I say, we're very focused on those directly impacted by a deposit return scheme, and making sure they are aware of the work that's happening and can share their views. We are aware, and thinking of the audience on today's call, we will need to, and we will want to, and we will be reaching out for a dialogue with the waste management sector, with those in local authorities, with service providers, equipment suppliers, etc., etc. But that's going to come in the next few weeks and months, so please do bear with us. And if we go to the next slide, that's basically because it is still very early days. As I say, we've been talking about DRS for a long, long time. In the UK, we had a bit of a misfire in Scotland a few years ago, but for this organisation, it is very, very new. We're starting to get in place the resource that will help us deliver on the plans that are needed to be built, but it is a very small organisation building and growing at speed. For now, 3 things you can do, which is please do just sign up for the newsletter on our website. Issue number 2 went out this week. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. And we've also now got a website, an email address. So if you have got questions, queries, please do log them, and we will do our best to answer them as quickly as we possibly can.